I am back with some more discussions today on how we can do individual item analysis to find out what standards the students have learned and what standards the students haven't learned. Some of it is pretty helpful. Some of what Canvas gives us I have no idea how to use, but let's take a look at it all real quick. First thing I did is I created a quiz. It was a very, very hard quiz for my 8th graders to do. And so I opened the quiz itself, and on the quiz I had taken each one of my questions and connected each question to an outcome, with an outcome being one of the state standards. Now, in the quiz, after the kids have taken it, you have to go back into it and select the build button again. After I select the build button, you're going to see how hard this quiz really was for my students. The instructions I gave them was I wanted them to get the very first question right, and I wanted them to get the other 3 questions, they pick one question to miss. Now, if you jump over here to the Reports tab, that's where we start getting into some interesting information. First off, on the very first report, it says that the high score was a 75, which was good. The low score was a 25. That's because one of my sweet darling children did not follow the instructions, and it had a mean score of 68. Now, if you click the View Report button right here, it's going to give you some more data. So first thing it's going to do is it will actually show you every individual question. On the questions, it gives you the difficulty level. If you take the difficulty level, multiply it by 100, that's going to tell you what percentage of the students got that question correct. So number 1, 100% of my students got correct. Number 2, 70%, 50%, and 50% for number 4 there. Next, it's going to give you the mean or average number of points earned. So for the first question, 2 out of 2 was the average. Second question, 1.4 out of 2, and so on down. And then the third one is going to be the median points earned. And for the median points, 2 out of 2. 2 out of 2 was the middle number again, and then these 2 was 1 out of 2, the middle median points for how many got wrong. Generally, I'm a fan of medians. However, when it comes to averages, but when it comes to this data, I think the mean or average is going to give you your better information. I use a bad term. Measures the central tendency, not averages. The discriminant index is something really screwy that I don't understand, so we're not going to talk about that. Now, I'm going to hit my back button, and when I hit my back button, we're going to look at something else. We're going to look at the outcomes analysis, and this is where you see the individual math standards associated with that quiz. The first thing that really jumps out to me on this data thing is that they screwed up the order of my questions. If you recall, I told all of my students to get question number 1 correct. And what question are they showing is correct here? Question number 2. But it's not question number 2 because they align these by the standards. It's not aligned by the questions, it's aligned by the standards. And if you take a look here, each one of these standards has 1 question associated by it. So if you're doing an analysis by the standards and you have 3 questions listed by the standard, then you're going to have your students, the 3 questions or so here, and on that standard, it would say whether or not this first child earned a perfect score, or what mastery they had, what the mastery of the second child is on that particular standard. So it's not based off of the individual questions, it's based off the standards. Next thing I'm going to point out here is that you can see under each standard how many met the standard, how many did not. So for this question here, all 10 of the students met the standard, 0 did not meet it. On this question, 3 students met the standard, 7 students met the standard, while 3 students did not. And on this one here, I had 5 students with mastery on the standard and 5 students did not. Pretty useful information. At a quick glance, you can get a good idea of where your students are, how many of them have mastery, and how many of them still have some room to grow. Now, we got one more thing to look at with the outcome information, and it is pretty close to useless. So I'm going to jump back over here. I'm going to click on the Outcomes button again, and then after I've clicked on the Outcomes button, I'm going to take and click on the Alignments page. And now we're going to see where we have got a bunch of information. First thing we've got, 66 outcomes. That's all of those main standards that we've got in 8th grade accelerated math, and that we have covered 8% of them. So 8% of the standards I now have an assessment of some type going with. I honestly don't know what this is. I'm going to say that it's 20% of the alignments per, I don't know. That part makes no sense to me. 558 accessible artifacts. I think that's how many different assessments I have built into this course. Yeah, I've done some work here. Or how many assessment questions, I should say, I have built into this course. Then you can see each of my standards down here on the left and what all they align to. And if we scroll down, we're going to have to go way, way, way down here. We're going to find that there's some place that I have actually aligned questions to standards. So whoop, right here. So the number of systems operations 2 is actually aligned to 6 different questions right now. 5 of those questions, questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, take place on this quiz right here, on this, or this subtest 7.3. I'm thinking it's saying that it is those question numbers that it's aligned to, question 1, 5, 6, 8, and 9, but I'm not really positive about that. Then you can see the quiz means nothing quiz. It shows that it is aligned to 1 question here, and it's pretty vague on how this is actually, what this information means, because if you go down to the next one, this standard has 1 alignment, which is on the same quiz, but it still gives me the same 1 to 3. I don't know what the 3 is. It says I do get that it's 1 question on that quiz is aligned to that standard. I have no idea what the 3 is. Maybe 3 point. I don't know. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But good information is you can see which of your standards you have assessed, which of your standards you still need to assess based off of the alignments over here, and what percentage of your overall standards you've covered. That's it for this lesson. Hopefully you got some good, useful information about it. If you come up with more good questions, let me know. I'll be happy to dig into them for you.